Welcome to all of you. We're really thrilled with the interest and the turnout in this event. This is a series of talks. This is the second in a series of talks called Sorting Fact from Fiction. We're doing these virtual presentations. Normally we do in-person presentations, but because of the circumstances, we're doing this virtually. And it's sponsored by AARP Washington, BECU, and the University of Washington Center for Informed Public. Some of you may have seen our first session on September 16th, featuring Dr. Jevin West, who is the director of the Center for Informed Public. And he was talking about how to spot misinformation on the internet. And that was also a well-attended event. Over 950 people saw that presentation. But today I'm really excited because our featured speaker is Brett Johnson, a cybersecurity expert who law enforcement once called the original Internet Godfather for his role in creating one of the first dark websites. And I just want to say a couple things. Brett and I and our team here at AARP Washington go back 2 or 3 years. I first heard about Brett by reading an article in a magazine, I guess it was a newspaper called The Independent in the UK, and I sort of profiled this guy. He wasn't very well known at that time, but I was very intrigued because they talked about how he was there at the start of this thing called the dark web, which we're going to get into today, and seemed to really know quite a bit about it, but also had a very criminal checkered past. So I reached out to him and, we talked for a little bit. I was somewhat skeptical, so we did a Skype interview, and in about an hour, I became convinced this guy knew more than I know about fraud. And he just had just a huge reservoir of information I'd never heard before. We ended up doing videos. There was an article in the Bulletin about Brett, but he has now made it his mission in life to take what he knows, his criminal past, and provide it to us so we can be forewarned. And I just want to say, before we get into this, we're living in a very scary world right now. I don't need to tell any of you this. I mean, we've got this global pandemic. We have a contentious election. We have racial strife in cities throughout the country. The president of the United States is in the hospital right now. The last thing we want to do is make your life more anxious and scary. Some of the things you'll hear Brett talk about they're frightening. But what I've heard from him before is he has solutions. He has steps that you can take to avoid these things. And so we're hoping our goal today is to leave you feeling more secure, not more anxious, based on the kinds of coaching you're going to get from Brett Johnson. So please join me in welcoming Brett Johnson.
Well, great. I want to thank everyone for taking their Saturday out to listen to me today. I truly appreciate it. I honestly, I could go on and on, but I really do appreciate you guys taking your Saturday out to listen to me. And I promise you that as crazy as 2020 is, and it is, and the year's not even over yet, as crazy as it is, I promise that at least I'm going to try to help you with one aspect of that, your identity, cybersecurity, and how to try to make you safer online. That being said, let's get started. All right, so that is my United States Most Wanted picture. Yep. I was in Las Vegas, Nevada. The night before, I had stolen $160,000 out of ATMs. Wake up the next morning, signed on to cartersmarket.com. There's my name, U.S. Most Wanted, beside of it. There are things in life known as aha moments. That was more of an type moment. So I did what any normal person would do. I loaded up and I went to Disney World. Yeah, I really went to Disney World. It lasted about 6 weeks. The Secret Service, they came and got me, arrested me, sent me to prison. Then I escaped from prison. Well, I prefer not to think of it as escape, though. You see, I think of it as the institution could no longer benefit me, so I decided to release myself on my own recognizance. That got me even more time. So the question is who is this numbnuts up here talking to you? The answer is the United States Secret Service called me the original Internet Godfather. Now, what did it take to get that title? It took 39 felonies, a place on the United States Most Wanted list. I escaped from prison. and I built the first organized cybercrime community. It was called Shadow Crew. It was a precursor to today's darknet and darknet markets. It laid the foundation for the way modern cybercrime channels still operate today. Needless to say, I went to prison, rightfully so. I was fortunate enough that I had enough people who cared about me and then later took me in under their wings and gave me an opportunity to turn my life around. Today, I'm able to talk to consumer groups like AARP. I talk at Quantico twice a year. I work with the largest companies on the planet to help protect people and businesses from the type of person that I used to be. And that's why I'm here today. Now, that being said, now there's an entire story about my background that we don't have time to go into because I'm more interested in talking about things that you can do to help protect yourself against the type of person I used to be. So that being said, let's talk about the anatomy of a scam, how scams operate, how they work. And I don't care if it's something as simple as 3-card Monte that you're looking at on a street corner somewhere, or something that is potentially a nation state attack that looks at an election trying to influence. I don't care what that is. How do scams work? How do they operate? What it is if you look at it, a scam, so when someone's trying to con you, it starts out as an oppositional field. They're on one side of the fence, you're on the other side of the fence, and you're kind of like, I don't know you, dude. I don't know anything about you. How can I trust you? Because that is exactly what matters on this planet. The only thing that matters is trust. Who do you trust? Because if you trust someone, you're more than likely willing to do something for them. And that's where a scam comes in. Where do you trust? How do you trust? How does a scammer get you to trust them? Well, there's 3 ways. Trust online is built by the technology, the tools, and social engineering. Now, what do I mean by the technology? This. We tend to trust the technology that's given to us. We look at a cell phone, we look at a laptop, a desktop computer, whatever that technology is, we look at it and we say, it looks secure. I think that, they built it. They didn't build it to rip me off. We tend to trust that technology without ever questioning that technology. That technology has that built-in kind of almost base level of trust to it. Now add the tools. And when I talk about tools, think of it from a scamming point of view. So there are tools that scammers use. A scammer can use something like a proxy, which a proxy allows them to spoof their location or their IP address of their computer, their home phone number of their computer. This is basically what an IP address is. So a proxy, a SOX 5 proxy allows that. Spoofed phone numbers, that's another tool that a scammer can use. So it allows a scammer to appear like he's coming from your phone number instead of the phone that he's dialing from, or the Social Security Administration's phone number, or the Sheriff's Office phone number, something like that, that spoofed phone number. Those are the tools. And then finally, social engineering. Social engineering is the types of lies that the scammer has to tell in order to get that information, access, data, or cash from the victim. So if you look at it, the tech and tools, they establish that base level of trust. All right, it's just a base level. So typically what will happen is say I'm trying to scam you, and I need your Social Security number. I've already bought your credit card information off of a dark website someplace, and I'm trying to build a complete identity profile on you so I can take over that credit card completely and milk all the money out of it. So what I need to do is I need your Social Security number. For some odd reason, I can't find that online, which typically I can, but in this case I can't. So I need your Social Security number. What I would do is I would pick up the phone. I would spoof the phone number of the Social Security Administration. Okay, so I'm using a tool to spoof the phone number. This phone number is coming through on this. It's going to show the caller ID on your phone is going to show Social Security Administration. So the tech that you have in your hand is aiding me in layering a base level of trust. The tech and the tools that I'm using, the tech that you have, the tool that I'm using, is layering that base level of trust. That's it. Now, if I were to simply call up and it said on your caller ID, Social Security Administration, and as soon as you picked up, I said, yeah, that's Bob over at Social Security Administration. I need your Social Security number. Are you going to give me the Social Security number? Probably not. Probably not. So it lays a base level of trust, but for that true trust, in order for me to get that Social Security number for that true trust to take place, I have to use a degree of social engineering. So what I would do is I would spoof the phone number. It would come through on your device as Social Security Administration. You would pick up and I'd say, yes, this is James Lasky down here at Social Security Administration. Look, we've got, have you ever been to Arkansas? No? Well, that's strange because we've got your Social Security number being used by 4 different individuals at a chicken ranch in Arkansas. You sure that's not you? It's not? All right, well, I'll tell you what I need. We'll go ahead and shut down the numbers that are being used under your name in Arkansas, and we'll investigate that. I just need you to confirm your last 4 so I know that I am speaking to the correct person. So let me get the last 4 of your Social Security number. We'll go from there. So I'm just asking for the last 4. What you may not know is that Social Security numbers issued prior to 2011 are not randomized, meaning that if I know the last 4 of your social, and if I know which state you're born in, which I would, and if I know what your date of birth is, which I would know that as well, I can get the first 5 digits of that Social Security number pretty easy. Is it likely that you would trust me enough at that point to give me the Social Security number? Probably. The tech, the tools, and then the social engineering on top of that would allow me to layer enough trust to get you to give me that information at that point. That's how scams typically operate. Romance scam is not much different at that point. It's all about using the tech and the tools. The tech and the tools at this point are, again, the cell phone or the laptop, as well as the website that you may be visiting, Match.com, Plenty of Fish, whatever that website is. That's a part of the tech. We inherently trust the tech that's in front of us. The tools that I'm using, it could be a spoofed phone number, it could be a spoofed email address, it could be a stolen identity, any number of things like that that help me build trust enough that you start to believe that I am who I claim I am. Then the social engineering that comes in that I would add from that, claiming, building rapport with you, talking, any number of things like that, until finally I look to make you a victim. And that victim comes in asking one of 4 things: information, access, data, or cash. The secret to all this is that without social engineering, cybercrime fails. All right, I can have all the tech and the tools that I at the wazoo. I can make it look like I'm anybody that I want to make it look like. I can steal any number of identities. I can make it look like I'm anywhere on the planet using fake IP addresses. But unless I'm a good enough social engineer, it completely fails at the end of the day. Okay, if you look at social engineering, phishing is a type of social engineering. 92% of every breach, every attack that's launched, whether it's against a company or an individual, 92% of every single attack begins with a phishing attack. How popular, how successful is phishing? If you look at spear phishing, and here's the difference between the two. So phishing is basically me on that boat on the internet, and I throw out a large net, and whatever fish I catch, that's my haul for the day. It's a numbers game. That's it. Spear phishing is a little different. Spear phishing, I'm Ahab on that boat, and I'm looking for one white whale. I don't care about anything else except that white whale. That's spear phishing. Spear phishing, if I'm looking at a specific victim, spear phishing is 86% successful. I don't care. I don't care about how educated, how uneducated, how rich, how poor, how important, how unimportant that potential victim is. It is still 86% successful. Now, why is that? A lot of people like to say, well, there is no patch for human stupidity. No, that's a cute line, but that's all it is. It's a cute line. It gets a laugh every now and then, but that's not true. The truth is you're dealing with an attacker who understands human psychology and the technology enough to manipulate you into giving up one of 4 things: information, access, data, or cash. All right, let's take an example. All right, here we've got a couple of email addresses. We've got Gollum@anglerfish.com to Gollum@anglerfish.com. Now take a second, look at these email addresses. Can you see the difference between the 2 email addresses? I know it's kind of small, so let's blow it up. Here's the first one, Gollum@anglerfish.com. And here's the second, Gollum@anglerfish.com. Take a minute. Look at it, see if you can spot the difference. Let's go back again. There's the first, Gollum@anglerfish.com. There's the second, Gollum@anglerfish.com. Can you see the difference between the 2? It's the dot above the I. One of them does not have a dot above the I. Now, what is that? That's what you call a Unicode domain. Okay, that I without the dot, that's a Russian alphabet I. That's not even an English alphabet I. That's Cyrillic. But it looks like that, except it's minus the dot. Now, are you going to notice, if I send you a phishing email out, are you going to notice that that dot is not above the I? Probably not, especially if you use something like this to check your email. You're probably not going to even notice that that dot's not above the I. If you're working payroll or something like that, and you're going through 200 to 300 emails a day, are you going to notice that a dot is not above an I? No, you're not. That is social engineering. That is understanding the technology and human psychology enough to manipulate someone into giving up one of four things: information, access, data, or cash. That's what all criminals want, and that's what it boils down to. And the reason they want it, there's only three reasons that cybercrime happens: status, cash, or ideology. Status. Can a criminal do something that no other criminal can do online? Can he use stolen credit card information to defraud Apple or Amazon? If he can, he gains the respect of every single person within his community. And some of these communities are millions of members large. Ideology. Do you have a different political opinion than someone else? Have you done something that has upset someone? If you have, they may be targeting you just for that specific reason. Most of the time, it's cash. Cash is king. All right. And here's one of the lessons that I used to teach on Shadow Crew, because Shadow Crew, it was a precursor to the dark web, but it was also a teaching environment. We taught criminals how to be better criminals. And one of the main lessons was all crime should begin with identity theft. Why? Well, why would I commit a crime under my name if I can do it under your name, especially if you're local? That way, when the cops show up, it's kind of like an early warning system. It's time for me to move on. All crime should begin with identity theft. Now, that being said, here's what's important to remember. There's a perception out there that there's something people can do to make sure that their identity is not compromised, that criminals don't have access to their personal information, their social, their date of birth, their driver's license, their mother's maiden, things like that. That seems to be the perception of many people. Let me dispel that. Everyone's information is already available. Everyone. That ship, if you're thinking there's something you can do to protect your information, that ship has sailed. Your information is already available to criminals. Last year alone, we had 1,500 reported breaches. Of those 1,500 reported breaches, 2.6 billion with a B, records are compromised. Everyone's information is available. Today on the dark web, I can go online, I can buy a complete identity profile. It ranges from $30 to $130, depending on the gender of the victim, the credit score, and the location of the victim. And when I say a complete identity profile, criminals call it a FULZ, F-U-L-L-Z. What it consists of is the person's name, address, social security number, mother's maiden, driver's license number, date of birth, background check, credit reports, social media lookups. That's a complete identity profile. Now, most people that are listening to this may already know this, but in the United States, everything that we have, all security is based on what's called KBA, knowledge-based authentication. Those are the security questions that are asked when you set up an account or when you change details on an existing account. So if you call in and you say, I want to update my phone number, I want to change my billing address or something like that, they'll ask you a couple of security questions. They may ask what the cross street is that you live on. They may ask what your mother's maiden name is, the last four of your social or your driver's license number, something like that. Those are knowledge-based authentication questions. Questions that supposedly only you are supposed to know the answer to. Well, not really, because what happens is criminals send out and fashion phishing emails or something like that, and they get this information. And today, in today's world, you don't even have to send out the phishing emails because there's enough systems out there. There's enough things like Ben Verified or Spokio or Intellius or TLO or DelvePoint that you can pull the background check of any victim that you want to. There's services, there's criminal services like RoboCheck, where I can go online, and RoboCheck is a criminal website. It lists the social security numbers and dates of birth of 170 million Americans at $4 a piece. So I can buy that already ready-made. I don't have to fish people out to get that information anymore. So these days, all of this is readily available. And it's on websites like the darknet that are on the darknet. You can buy ready-made identity profiles for a low of $30 up to about $130 that have all this information already collated for criminals to use. Children are the number one victims of identity theft. 25% of all kids out there will be a victim of ID theft, either through medical fraud, insurance fraud, or this thing called synthetic fraud, which is taking over the planet right now. How much can you buy a kid's identity for? $2. $2. For $2, you get the child's name, social security number, date of birth, mother's maiden, and place of birth. $2. That's what we're talking about today. That's the importance of the dark web, what the dark web provides. That's why cybercrime continues to explode as it does today. So let's talk about, since I said you can buy this on the dark web wherever you want to, let's talk about what the dark web is. So the dark web, the thing that's called the dark web, let's take this next slide so we can get a better picture of this. And this is typically what's shown all the time, is this iceberg that's out there, all right? So the dark web was developed, or the Tor browser. The Tor browser was developed by the United States Navy. It was developed so that operatives could communicate with other operatives without being identified. So you got a spy, basically, that's over in Russia, and he's trying to send word back to the other spies here in the United States. They don't want anybody to know that, so the Navy developed the Tor project. And Tor stands for the onion router. It was meant to allow people to communicate with each other without being identified. So think of the onion router, and there's a reason it's called the onion router. Think of it as your main IP address, and within your IP address is then obscured by layers upon layers upon layers of encrypted other IP addresses, kind of like an onion, all right? And you have to start trying to get through those layers to get to the main IP address, which becomes almost impossible unless you've got a lot of computing power, a lot of money, and one heck of a reason to try to do that. Okay, and the more popular Tor gets, the harder, the more difficult it gets to try to find what that real IP address is, unless you get somebody that doesn't know how to properly use it. Okay, now so that's why it was developed. It was also meant for dissidents of other countries to get past their country's firewall. So you've got someone in Cuba, Iran, China that's trying to see what's really happening instead of what the government just wants them to see that's happening. So it was developed so that those dissidents in those countries could see what was actually happening and actually get word out as to what was actually happening in their country. The Tor project goes open source. Now, here's the interesting thing about that. What you tend to see is when you have a technology that allows a criminal to launder money or stay anonymous, the first adopters, oddly enough, are criminals. So the Tor project goes open source. They're like, hey, you guys, anyone that wants it can use it. Well, the first adoptees were criminals. What they quickly found out is, hey, as long as we know how to use this thing, we can remain pretty anonymous. And then they found out, hey, not only can we remain anonymous, but we can actually host websites on this thing. And it becomes extremely difficult for law enforcement to even be able to find where the server is or even track us at that point. So that's what that's the basis of the dark web. Now, what is the dark web? Think of the internet as three parts, and this is where this iceberg comes into play. All right. So the top part, where you see the iceberg above water, that is the surface web. It is basically anything that you can find by using Google. Now, how big is that? That's only about, at the most, 4 to 5% of the internet. Yeah, 4 to 5% of the internet is what you can find on Google. The other 94, 95%, that's the deep web. That's everything that's underwater. All right. Now, here's what's kind of interesting on that. When I say the deep web, what does that mean? That's anything behind a wall. Okay, it's anything that Google won't find. So Google won't find your banking information. You can't pull up your Wells Fargo bank statement like that. That's part of the deep web. It won't find your emails that you send back and forth with your friends and business associate. That's deep web. It won't find anything that's behind a paywall. That's, again, deep web. It won't find encrypted things. It won't find anything that doesn't have a web address to it. That's the deep web. Now, within the deep web, Now, the deep web is 94 to 95%. Within the deep web, deep down in there, is where you find the dark web. It is part of the deep web. The dark web, it's extremely difficult to determine how big it is because a lot of the websites, you don't know. There's not a search engine for the dark web. All right, you have to know the address to where you're going. So there are surface websites that have nothing but dark web addresses that you can plug into this special browser called the Tor browser that allows you to visit the dark web. Now, there is a lot of criminal activity, oddly enough, on the dark web. That does not mean that all criminal activity, that everything that's on the dark web is criminal. It's not. There are academic sites on the dark web. There are email sites where you can have a dark web email address, or there are sister sites on the dark web that you see on the surface web as well. Like the New York Times has a dark web site. There are different sites on there that are illegal. For all intents and purposes, most of the traffic tends to be illegal traffic. Okay, it tends to be these traffickers that are exchanging credit card information that are, let's be honest, the type of criminal activity on the dark web spans the entire criminal spectrum. It's not just financial crime, it's drug trafficking, it's human trafficking, it's any number of types of crimes that you could possibly imagine are on the dark web. Okay, that being said, I want you to understand that most crime, while the dark web itself is a haven for criminal activity, most criminal activity takes place on the surface web. On the surface web, that's where most criminal activity takes place. Think about it, okay? If I buy your stolen credit card information, I buy it on the dark web, but where am I going to use it? I'm going to use it on the surface web. I'm going to try to use it on Amazon or something like that. If I'm looking to get your social security number, if I'm looking to launch a phishing campaign or something like that, where's that going to take place? It's going to take place on the surface web. Okay, that's where it's going to take place. So just to understand that while the dark web is a haven for criminals, the actual criminal activity often takes place on the surface web itself. Okay, so that's just one thing I wanted to point out there. Moving right along. When I have your information, so say I either create a complete identity profile, or I buy one ready-made. So I just want to walk you through real quick how I would create one. So I buy your credit card information. I want to take over your credit card account so that I can milk all the money out of that account. To do that, I have to have the complete identity profile. I have to be able to answer those security questions. Say I can't buy your already ready-made complete identity profile on the dark web for that $30. I have to make it myself. To make it myself, it's actually pretty easy. What I would do is it would start by going on the dark web, buying your credit card information for $12. For $12, I get your name, I get your address, I get the credit card number, the expiration date, 3-digit security code on the back. That's $12. Now I can use that information immediately and charge probably $500 to $1,000 worth of product or service that's on the card. But say the card's got $12,000 on it. I'm leaving, $11,000 on the card. I don't want to do that. I want to maximize the card. So I need to take the card account over. So I need that complete profile to answer the security questions. First stop, I mentioned it a few minutes ago. First stop is robocheck.cm. It's a criminal website, lists social security numbers, dates of birth for 170 million Americans, $4 a piece. Buy your social, date of birth there. From there, I go over and get your background check. I go to Ben Verified usually. Ben Verified, for $25 a month, I can pull unlimited background checks on whoever I want to. So I pull the background check on you and every single associate of yours in order to get the mother's maiden name, which I get. So once I get the background checks, find out the mother's maiden name, I then go and get your credit report. Where? annualcreditreport.com, where they ask those security questions I've been talking about, but there's no time limit on those security questions. So I can sit there all day long with the background check, with Google, and try to get the correct answers. Say I can't get the correct answers. Say I miss one of them. That's okay, because then I go over to Credit Karma, where they ask the exact same questions, except the answers are wrong except for the correct answer. So now I have the credit report. From there, I go to LinkedIn to find out where you work, Glassdoor to find out how much you make, Facebook finally to find out if you've posted anything of interest. Then I have your complete information. Then I can do whatever I want to. Some of the things I can do, I can use your stolen credit card I just bought, or I can commit new account fraud. New account fraud, sure, I've got your credit report there. I just look and see where you don't have an account. Oh, you don't have an account at Best Buy. Oh, you don't have an account at Chase. Let me open up credit accounts at both of those places. I can then have the cards sent to your physical address, your real address, and steal them off your porch or out of your box. Or I can change the address and have that forwarded to some address that I control. I can go down to the post office. I can fill out a change of address form. If I don't want to do that, I can go to Walmart. I can get a prepaid debit card, register it in your name, then go to USPS.com, change the address at that point, have mail forwarded on. I can fill out a credit application and just put a new address on the credit application. 30 days later, that new address appears on your credit report, and I can have all new accounts opened up and sent to that new address that's appeared on the credit report. There are several different techniques to do that. That's one of the types of fraud and crime that I can do. Another type is an account takeover. I was just talking about how that account takeover specifically works. And the way it works, oddly enough, is I pick up the phone. It's tech, tools, social engineering that we talked about just a few minutes ago, okay? So the way it works, I get say I buy your bank login information. I can buy that for $30 to $40. I then build that identity profile that I just spoke about on how to build it. So now I've got your identity profile. So I've got the answers to any security questions they may want to ask. So what I do is I pick up the phone. I call the bank. I spoof the phone number. I spoof your phone number when I call the bank. That way the bank, the customer service agent, sees your phone number, not the phone number I'm calling from, when they see when it pops up on their computer screen there. So I call in and I'm going to ask one question. I'm going to ask, what is my available balance? They're going to ask me 2 security questions. One of those security questions may be mother's maiden name. Now here's the thing. I've got mother's maiden name. I know what the real mother's maiden name is, but I'm going to miss it. I'm not going to get it right. I'm going to say something else, but I'm going to say it with confidence. So my last name's Johnson. I'll say, Johnson. I'm sorry, sir, that's not what we've got. Huh? Well, what do you got? What do you got there? Sir, I'm sorry, we're not going to tell you what we've got. Well, I tell you what, I don't know what you've got, but I know what my mother's name is. What are you guys even doing over there? So what are they trained to do at that point? They're trained to ask 2 other security questions, which I have the answers to. Then what happens? Then they change the mother's maiden name to whatever I want them to change the mother's maiden name to. They give me the available balance, and that's not even the purpose of the call. The purpose of the call happens as I'm hanging up. As I'm hanging up, as she's hanging up, the customer service agent, I say, oh, by the way, can you update my phone number on file? Well, yes, sir, we can do that. Now, why does that work? So the payment terminal or the customer service terminal at the bank, that is the technology. That agent, that customer service agent, trusts the technology that's in front of them. They trust that the information that's coming through is accurate information. When that phone number appears on the customer service screen, it appears as your phone number, not my phone number. So they inherently trust that that number calling in is what it appears to be. I am spoofing. I'm using technology on my side to spoof the number, your number, okay? So technology lays what I call a base level of trust. Now, what happens is if I were just to use that and call in and say, oh, I just need to update my phone number, probably not going to work because it's just a base level. I've not layered enough trust and built rapport enough to get them to change the number. So I have to do that. How do I do that? I do that by creating a diversion, a problem, solving the problem with the customer service agent. So the diversion, the problem that I create is I miss the mother's maiden name. That allows me to build a rapport with the customer service agent. I build a rapport. We have a problem. That's okay. We're going to solve the problem together. It allows me to talk to the customer service agent. Solve the problem together, build the rapport, and layer trust at the same time. Why? How? Because I'm answering more of these security questions that the customer service is asking, thereby proving even more I am who I claim I say I am, okay? Now, what you have to realize is customer service is there to help me. They're there to make me happy. They believe I am who I say I am. I've proven it even more at that point. But they also go through maybe 200-300 calls a day. Mentally, they only think that I'm looking for the available balance. They've encountered a problem. They've fixed the problem. Mentally, they're looking forward to the next call. So as they think everything's settled, what happens? They mentally disconnect from the call. They're looking forward to the next call. I'm not, because my main goal is to get the phone number changed on file. So as they're hanging up, by the way, can you update my phone number on file? They've mentally disconnected, looking forward to the next call. Yes, sir, we can take care of that. What's the new number? Now, does that work? Absolutely it works. It works so well. I've done this before that I've been asked many times, why are you changing the phone number on file? The answer I give, I no longer have that number. I no longer have the number that's showing up on their payments, on their customer service system. Because again, they've mentally disconnected. They're not thinking about it. They're thinking about the next call that's coming in. I've distracted them. I've built rapport. I've proven I am who I claim I say I am. All right. So that is how an account takeover works. So here's the thing. When you're looking at scams, it's about building trust across the board. What does it take a scammer to do to get you to trust them? Does it take the technology that's in your hand or the technology that they're using? Does it take the tools that are being applied? So is it the website? Is it the cell phone that's being used? Is it the spoofing of an IP address or the spoofing of a phone number? What's happening at that level that's getting you to trust them? And why are you trusting them? Always question this. Always question this. Then add on to it, what is that person on the other end of the line doing? What is he or she saying that's getting you to trust them? Are they creating problems? Are they building rapport? Is it a romance scam and they're telling you something like, oh, here's the thing. I could easily, you can get on a website of one of these romance scams, these dating websites, and you'll have people that'll reach out to you, and within 10 minutes they're like, I don't have gas money. I really like you. I think I love you. Let's get together, but I need gas money. Can you send me some gas money? Or something like that. Now, are you going to believe that? Probably not. Hopefully not. Romance scams or scams don't tend to work like that. It's typically not that outright, that in your face. Typically, a scam like that would be more like, I really like you. Let's be friends. And you just talk. Because what you need to realize is some of these scammers are overseas where maybe $800 is 4 months' salary. Maybe $10,000 makes someone a rich man all of a sudden. So you need to realize that it's these long cons. It's taking the time to really set up the scam, build a rapport, act like you're friends with the person, and then after friendship, I feel a connection with you. Do you feel this too? I never thought that I would feel this close to anyone ever before. I never thought it was possible. My wife left me, and I never thought that I would be this close to someone again. And I never thought I'd find it online. Think about that, online. I never thought that. So is it something like that? And then finally, you're talking about meeting, or the person on the other line. Yeah, I want to meet you. I'm coming to meet you. But the problem is I've got my son. I'm trying to save money for him, and he's got this condition, and we're trying to get the treatments for him. Doesn't never ask you for money. Maybe he gets you to the point, because that's the point. The point of the scam is, hopefully, the scammer is going to try to get you to where hopefully you volunteer the money, that the scammer never even has to mention it. You volunteer it. So the scammer mentions this a couple of times. I'd love to come visit you, but I just don't have the money. Well, I can send you the money. I can send you money, come visit me, or I can send you the money to help your son. And what happens at that point? Does the scammer accept? If the scammer's smart, no. At that point, the scammer says, absolutely not. We don't know each other that well. There's no way on earth that I would ever take money from you. Turns you down. What happens when the scammer turns you down? That increases your trust in that person. If that person were really trying to rip me off, he would have accepted the money right then. No, this is a long con. He knows that by turning you down the first time, that's going to build that trust, and he's going to get more money out of you in the end. So he keeps going. Keeps going, I'd love to come see you. Look, please take the money. It's that second time. All right, let's do that. Takes the money, comes back. Oh, I am so thankful to you. I don't know how I'll ever pay you back, but I'm so thankful. My son's doing much better. The doctor says it's only going to take maybe 10 more of these treatments. So there you go. That's how that works. So understand that it's about building trust. And what does it take for a criminal to build trust? And here's one of the things I want to talk about real quick before we get to the conclusion. And I start giving you the pointers on how to protect yourself. It's very important that we realize that the victim is never to blame for being scammed. All right? We live in a society today where victims of phishing attacks, romance scams, whatever the scam is, we live in a society today where media, and let's be honest, a lot of our family members out there blame us for being victims. I can't believe that you were that stupid to send money to somebody that you have never met before. Why on earth did you even click on that link? We blame the victims. That is wrong. It is never the victim's fault. Okay? So I want everyone out there to realize that. We have to get to the point where we stop blaming the victims. The victims are not responsible for the crimes that are perpetrated against them. It is always the criminal's fault that crime happens. Always. So we need to get past that. If you're a family member that's listening to this and you've got somebody that you think is being scammed, get that out of your head that they're stupid, that I can't believe you. I would have never. How could you possibly have believed that? Get that language out of your head. They don't need to hear that. Because when you approach someone with that type of language, what happens at that point? The victim shuts down. They internalize that. They're not going to talk about it. And I promise you that if they're not going to talk about it to you, they're not going to go to law enforcement to report it. And all of these crimes need to be reported to law enforcement. We need to start prosecuting these people to the fullest extent of the law, self-included when I was breaking the law as well. Okay? So stop blaming the victim. Move on. Let's start changing that language. Let's start helping people instead of hurting and judging others. Okay? Now, moving right along, the conclusion of all this, of course, is that we are completely screwed. It's game over. The criminals win. The best thing we could do is shut down every single one of our accounts, move to the woods, get a shack, a generator, and live like hermits the rest of our lives. No, absolutely not. Just as a lot of cybercrime is not rocket science. These crimes are not complicated crimes that are being committed. Just as cybercrime, and I've got to put on my glasses, get to be 46, and I'm not 46, I'm 50 now. Got to have reading glasses. So I can see the pointers myself because I don't want to miss one of them. So just as cybercrime is not rocket science, it's not really complicated to protect yourself against that type of person that I used to be. The first thing I want everyone to do is freeze the credit of every single person in the house, including any children that are there because kids are the number one victims. So credit freezes became free September 18th, 2018. Okay? I'm not talking about a credit alert. What you have to do is you have to contact all 3 credit bureaus. You freeze the credit of every single person across the board, okay? Freeze the credit. Credit bureaus are going to try to talk you into, oh, you don't need to freeze that credit. Just place the alert. Well, when you place the alert, they're going to charge you for that. No, freeze the credit. It stops all new account fraud. New account fraud being the operative term here because those existing accounts, your credit cards, your bank accounts, your tax records, all that stuff, those are existing. A credit freeze doesn't stop access or use of those, okay? So what you have to do is you also have to monitor your accounts and place alerts on the existing accounts where you can. For example, and when I say monitor all accounts, I mean all accounts. So those are your merchant accounts, credit reports, credit cards, bank accounts, tax records, email accounts. Every single account that you've got to monitor, place alerts. Alerts like, for example, Discover Card has a $0 alert, meaning that if a criminal just buys your Discover Card information, if he pings it just to see if it's still alive, you get a text message that says, hey, someone's trying to use my card, and then you can shut it down. So place alerts on the existing accounts where you can. Passwords. Rhetorical question of the day. How many people out there use the exact same password and log in across multiple websites? Take a second. Everyone's in the privacy of their own home. Raise your hand. Come on, it's kind of like an AA meeting. Hi, I'm Brett Johnson. I use the same password and log in. I do it. And here's the question. Here's the answer. 80%. 80% of every single person on the planet, they do it too. So the people out there that are not answering it, maybe they're looking away a little bit. If you're not using a password manager, chances are you're using the exact same password, or a password just a little bit different across multiple websites. Here's why that's important. Phishing is a 92% attack, okay? If I send out a phishing email that looks like it comes from Bank of America, is your level of awareness going to be pretty high? Absolutely. You're going to look at it and say, that's obviously a phishing email. I'm not going to fall for that crap. But what happens if I send out a phishing email that looks like it comes from Hulu? Is your level of awareness going to be as high? Probably not. Probably you're going to look at it and say, Hulu? Does anyone even watch Hulu? I mean, the only thing they've got is The Handmaid's Tale. That second season sucked. Probably your level of awareness is not going to be as high. But here's the problem. If you use the same password and email for Hulu that you use for your bank account, it's an automated program. I go to bed at night. That program, it plugs your password and login into hundreds of thousands of websites overnight. I wake up the next morning. If you use the same password and login, guess what? Got your bank, your credit card, your tax, your credit reports, all your merchant logins. I'm a happy camper, and your Hulu account. So I'm a happy camper. So that's why it's important to practice strong password security. The problem with that is we're never taught how to use strong passwords. Or what a strong password is. We go to a website, there's a graph and there's some instructions, use uppercase, lowercase, so many symbols, so long. You start plugging it in, there's a little graph that says weak, 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 weak. Finally it says strong. You're like, strong, yes, score. No idea how it became strong, not a clue. But it's strong. We're never taught what a strong password is. And human beings cannot be random. So the answer right now is to use a password manager. I don't care which password manager you use, but use one of them, okay? Moving right along, understand your place in the cybercrime spectrum because you have one. The way a criminal will victimize you differs from, say, if you're retired, or if you work food service for 20 years, or if you're a CEO or work payroll in a company. I, as a criminal, will still victimize you, but the way that I will victimize you is different. Okay? If you're retired, I may just only look at stealing your Social Security benefits, of taking over those accounts and having those funds deposited to a prepaid debit card that I have. If you're CEO or work payroll, I may look at trying to engage in business email compromise, of sending someone in payroll an updated direct deposit form to have the funds deposited to an account that I control instead of an account that you actually owe as a company. All right, so it differs. Understand your place in the cybercrime spectrum, how a criminal will look to victimize you, and then design your security around it. One of the things that you see about scams, typically a scammer tries to get the victim or the potential victim to act out of desperation, okay, through fright. If you don't, the IRS has a warrant for your arrest, and if you don't send us $40,000 in Soma gift cards, we are going to put you in prison. Go now. Go and do not hang up. No, do not hang up. Do not hang up. If you hang up, we come put you in prison. Do not hang up. You go to jail. Do you want to go to jail? So they try to get you to act in desperation. Your son, your grandson, is being held in jail in Mexico. We need bond. Something like that. Romance scams. You know, I would love to come and see you, but I can't. So you all of a sudden you get desperate. You think you're about to lose that friendship or that romantic connection. Try to get you to act out of desperation. What I need you to do is just take a breath. Take a breath. Step back. Consider, why am I acting? Am I acting because it's some form of desperation? Am I acting because if I don't, I'm fearful of losing something, of being arrested or something like that? If you're acting out of desperation, I need you to take it, just whatever's being asked of you, take a step back, take a breath, count to 10, and try to look at it objectively. Better yet, get a buddy. Somebody, I don't care if it's friend or enemy. Find someone that you can say, hey, hold on a second. Bill, does this stuff sound right to you? That buddy gives you an objective point of view, because often in a scam, you are not objective anymore. You are right in the middle of that. You've got the emotions playing and everything else. I need you to take a step back and to also try to find a buddy that will give you an objective point of view, someone that can handle things rationally and say, hey, no, that's not right at all. You're about to go get gift cards? What government takes gift cards? Someone that can be objective for you. Okay, so do that. Register all online accounts. So a lot of people don't do online banking right now. They think that they're safer by not doing online banking. That is not the truth. I need you to register accounts even if you don't use them. So register a bank, register Social Security Administration. If you don't, a criminal will. And when a criminal does it, that criminal then appears to be more valid than you are to the administration, to the Social Security Administration or the bank. So register all online accounts. Trust but verify. As Reagan said it. I like people to trust things. I really do. But we need to trust and verify. We don't need to live lives being scared. I like to trust. And I do. Even me as a former criminal, I trust about everything that comes across, but I verify as well. So I immediately trust, but I immediately try to verify as well. Always verify information from whatever source it's coming through. Always report to law enforcement. And my thoughts on identity theft protection services. I told you had to monitor all accounts. All right. That's true. The problem is some people have got a lot of accounts. The other problem is that human beings, all of us, tend to get lazy. We start out very diligent. We're right on the ball. Bam, bam, bam. Checking the accounts, pulling the credit reports, everything else in a timely fashion. But over time, we get tired of that. We get lazy. We get bored. And a gap appears. Instead of pulling the credit report every 3 months, we may pull it every 4 months. Well, it's that gap where a criminal steps in and operates, where he works. We're not checking our accounts as often as we should to make sure the money's there, to make sure we control those accounts. In that time that we're not checking that is where a criminal comes in and operates, okay? An identity theft protection service, they don't get tired. They don't get bored. It's automated. They continue to do that. So I do support those. I do ask that if you're going to look at an identity theft protection service, that you try to find one that has not been hit with a lot of class action suits, that has a lot of strong support, a lot of recommendations, not a lot of celebrities that are out there talking about them, but the actual users. Read the reviews, go like that, and choose wisely. Okay. Also, while you're doing that, I still want you to take a proactive response to your security, because it's not their accounts, it's not their lives that you're dealing with, it's yours. So understand what's going on with your accounts and your security at the same time. That is the presentation. We're going to take some questions and answers right now. That being said, here's my personal information as well. Any questions, any comments, if you've got any problems at all, do not hesitate to reach out to me. I will help you as much as I possibly can. I truly mean that when I say that I am here to try to help protect people from the type of person that I used to be. With that, let's go to the Q&A session, Doug.
Hey, listen, that was a great presentation, Brett. And what I was saying is I've heard this before, your spiel, and I learned something new every single time. And we have an enormous number of questions here, probably more than we can ever get to. But I thought I would just jump in and start grilling you with questions. Okay. One question is, I've been told I'm on the dark web. How do I verify that? And how can I get myself removed without changing all of my passwords?
Sure. So here's the answer. There may be people out in the audience that pay for dark web monitoring. I'm going to save you that $8, $12, $14 a month right now. You are on the dark web. Okay? The sad thing is, there's not a thing you can do about it. That information has already been compromised. It's out in the wild. Once it is out in the wild, it's like Pandora's box. There's nothing you can do to stop that. We need to accept that, okay? Your information, everyone's information, is already compromised. Once you accept that, then you figure out, okay, once it's out there, what can I do to make sure a criminal can't use it? And those are those techniques that I talked about. So you freeze credit, monitor accounts, place alerts, and change passwords. There's no way around that. You have to do that, okay? But I promise you that when you do that, the effects of just those three things are far exceed just the actions of those three things, because you're no longer that low-hanging fruit that criminals look for. You're way up in that tree. Criminals are looking for the guys that are easy picking. So do those three things and you will protect yourself, okay?
That's great. Thank you. One question is about, we didn't talk much about biometrics, and there's a question, instead of a password or even two-factor authentication to protect your accounts, what's your view on biometrics? This is, using your iris or your fingerprint or whatever. Is that a smart?
Sure. So
go ahead. Yeah.
Biometrics are great, but I want people to understand that identity these days, a person's identity is more than their name, their social, their date of birth, their mother's maiden name, their address, things like that. An online identity is where you visit. What websites are you going to? What you like and don't like? Who you talk to online? The way you hold your phone, that's a biometric. The way you walk with your phone, the way you talk with your phone, the way you type with it. All of these things are specific to you. They are unique identifiers which identify you to whatever website you're going to. Those are called biometrics. It's also your fingerprint. It's your eye scan. It's all these things together create the identity. The thing about that is that those biometrics, much like a phone number, can sometimes be spoofed or stolen. Okay? So while right now, biometrics are extremely secure. We have seen a couple of instances where biometric data has been stolen from some of these biometric companies. Okay? It's not being used yet, but it has been stolen. Now, that being said, is there a possibility in the future that stolen biometric data could be used to compromise accounts or whatever? Yeah, absolutely. It's a possibility. Absolutely. Okay, someone spoof your fingerprint? Yeah, it could be done. Absolutely, it could. So understand that. Right now, it's great, but always anticipate what could happen. The problem is that if you're using, and I want people to understand, I support biometric data on my phone. I've got it locked with the fingerprint. Absolutely, I do. I support it. It's fantastic. But if that data ever gets out, if someone ever captures, and all this is encrypted right now, it's not going to happen. No one's going to get that data and use it. In the future, is it a possibility? Yes. The problem is that fingerprint never changes. So if someone decrypts that in the future, if someone is able to use that, well, then they've got that fingerprint from here on out. I can't change that. So it's not like a password. It's something that can be compromised. Right now, though, it's absolutely fine to use that. Okay, it's absolutely fine. But always try to anticipate for the future. There's some things that you simply can't control. Right now, it's extremely secure, and right now, you need to be doing what is extremely secure. Okay, I'm sorry that's not a good answer for you, but it's really the only answer.
No, it's okay. Well, and there's obvious privacy concerns, if you've alluded to them, about
obvious
companies trying to get these unique identifiers, but now they have those unique identifiers about me. One question that is sort of symbolic of several questions. I was hacked in February because I updated my Windows 10, and the next thing you know, my friends were asking why I was asking them to send gift cards. Hackers got into our contact list. How did they get into my computer?
Typically, that's a phishing attempt. It could be. So there's several different techniques you can use. You can phish someone and have them click on a link that has malware. You can go to a website that has malware. You can download a file that has malware. You could have, you see, passwords don't just apply to email and merchant accounts or your bank account. How many people out there have a router that they've never changed the password on? Or an IoT device that you've never changed the password on. Well, guess what? I can look up the default passwords all day long on Google to what the default passwords are. Here's the stat. 41% of every single router on the planet, that's in the home, in the banks, 41% have the default password. If that's true, then I can install whatever I want to on the routers at that point. So I can capture the data coming through, everything else like that. There's several different types of techniques that can be used to attack you. Understand that when I talk about some of that stuff, some of the stuff you can control, some of the stuff you can't. Can you change default passwords? Absolutely, on every single thing you own, and you should, okay? Because if not, you're that low-hanging fruit again. You're that easy picking for the criminal. So you need to make sure that you're not the easy picking, and something just as simple as changing default passwords gets you way up in that tree all of a sudden, okay?
Hey, Brett, I wanted to ask you about tech support scams. We didn't really cover these, but that's one of the huge areas. Robo-dialing billions of people How do these, and one of the ways it happens, as you know, is that you get a pop-up on your screen that says there's something wrong with your computer. You're supposed to call this number. The question I've never understood is, how do you know if that pop-up's real or not? I mean, this may be why the person got hacked. A pop-up happens saying, download Windows 10. How do you know if the pop-up's real or not? And how do you get out of it? Because a lot of our folks, a lot of the victims are older folks of that. They're not sure what's going on with their computer, so they call the number, and then they have them remote access into the computer, and you know what happens after that. So how can you defend against these tech support scams and the pop-ups in particular?
Okay, so what I want people to understand is it's not just, you guys that get hit with these pop-ups. I get them all the time, and they drive me crazy. All right. I mean, they do. It pops up. It's got the horn blaring because you've got the speakers on. So the first thing I do is I mute it because I can't stand that sound. All right. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you're sitting there trying to hit the X and it's not minimizing. It's not going out. It just keeps going and going and going. So the first thing you do is you hit Control-Alt-Delete and you shut it down like that. You go to Task Manager, you find it there and you end task. Tends to be. Now, there are a few ways you can stop that. What browser are you using? Is it a current updated browser as well? So make sure that you're the secret is, first of all, apply all updates. Now, that's not going to stop all of this, okay? Second thing is where are you visiting that might be resulting in these pop-ups? Typically, these pop-ups are on a lot of sites that are not, you're not going to get these pop-ups coming on eBay unless you've been infected with malware someplace else, okay? So always keep your machine clean. Use the antivirus, the anti-malware that's out there. Windows has a free version. I think it's called Windows Necessities is what it is. So always update. Make sure you're using virus software, anti-malware software. If you do get these pop-ups, the first thing I want you to realize is that if it's a pop-up, it's a scam, okay? It's a scam. It's going to have an 800 number on there. Microsoft is not going to do that. I love Microsoft, but at the end of the day, I'm not really sure Microsoft really cares whether your system's crashing or not. They tell you to update. They want you to update. They're going to rely on you to reach out to them. Now, there's a thing called a blue screen of death. Typically, that doesn't happen a lot anymore, okay? Typically, whenever pop-up is up there, if it's got an 800 number, it's going to be a scam. It's going to be a scam. Ignore it. Then it becomes, how do I shut it down? Control-Alt-Delete often helps that. In order to stop that from happening to begin with, be aware of where you're visiting. Update all browsers. Use the most current version of the browser you can. I know a lot of people, I loved Internet Explorer. I loved the old version of Microsoft Edge. But they're old for a reason. They're not very secure anymore. So you need to use the most updated version. Chrome, Firefox, Edge has got their new browser out that's very competent as well. So, Apple's got some extremely good browsers. Just always update instead of waiting on the update. Always update, and that will tend to take care of that. Browsers that pop up, make sure that you realize that the browser that's popping up, that's going to be a scam more than likely 99% of the time. That's really all you can do at that point. Just be aware of what's going on. Don't. There's a reason that when that pop-up comes up, that it's got that horn blaring at the same time. Okay, there's a reason, and it's because it's getting you to act in that sense of desperation that I'm talking about. I got to stop it. I got to stop it. It's got you outside of acting out of an emotion than anything else. You see the 800 number, the horn's going off. You're not even thinking about it. Let's turn the speaker off. Just how do I stop that? Pick up the phone, call. That's when the social engineering kicks in. At that point, oh yes, we are customer service. What can we do for you? We need your credit card information. It's $39.99. We need remote access. We need remote access to your computer. We fix everything fine. $39.99. Then they charge that. Then they've got your personal information. They've got access to your computer. They've got everything across the board. So just understand that is a scam to begin with. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if you covered, I don't think you covered this, but you have before, the whole question of Facebook privacy settings. I know you and I have talked about this before because from time to time I'm looking for people. And if I find that they have a Facebook account, 9 times out of 10, that means I can find them because they put so much personal information on their Facebook account. Can you just talk through, not going through all the mechanics of it, but why it's important to do those privacy settings.
Sure. So understand that, like, I have a Facebook page. I don't use it, but I get notices every now and then of whatever birthday it is for a friend of mine. So just the other day, a friend of mine has a birthday, and I'm like, okay, I know this person pretty well. I'll wish them a happy birthday. Well, I click on it, and then it lists, there's this page that pops up that lists the birth dates of every single friend that I have on Facebook. I mean, the birth dates. Well, that is one of these KBA questions that criminals sometimes have problems getting the information on. But Facebook's got it. So if you've got an open profile, a public profile, how easy is it for a criminal to find your date of birth? Well, it's actually pretty easy. Even if they can't get to that page where it's got the birth dates of all your friends, they can scroll through your feed, and guess what? On your birthday, your friends are going to wish you happy birthday. So you just scroll through that first year. There's his birthday, June 23rd. Gotcha. All right, so that's what happens at that point. It's not only just for cybercrime. So you're going on vacation. You're going on vacation. You've announced it on Facebook. You've shared it with everyone. Criminals surf Facebook all the time. All the time. So now they're casing at your home. Oh, he's got a brand new 86-inch TV. Oh, my goodness, he's got 2 MacBooks in there. Is that a Rolex? I'm going to be visiting that home. They're going where? Oh, they're going out to California for the summer. Gotcha. They're going when? So you got pictures posted on when you're out there and everything else. They know the home's empty. It becomes Home Alone all of a sudden. So understand that. That's what goes on. You always need to act private, but it goes beyond that. I was in the UK a couple years ago, and there were predators that were taking pictures of children off of Facebook and then using those for nefarious purposes as well. It's understand that it's not just good people that use Facebook. There are criminals out there. There are predators out there. And if you leave it public, you become that low-hanging fruit again. So make it private. Make it where only your real friends have access. You don't need everyone on the planet viewing your profile. It's no one's business but you and your friends and families. Okay.
One of the things I've heard you say before, Brett, is the importance of downloading updates as soon as they come up. And you made the point, this was a couple of years ago, that the reason that's important is it shores up security for your computer. But also, if somebody is giving an update, that means they found a hole in the security, and people like you would rush to go in before you update, right? So there's this time frame where there's a real opening. Because I have this problem with my family. I'm not going to pinpoint anybody. I go on a computer and there's like 5 updates from going back 6 months. I'm like, why aren't you downloading this? Well, I get to it. It's not that important. How important is it?
Let's use Equifax, okay? So everyone knows that Equifax gets hit. The reason Equifax got breached, the reason everyone's data was stolen from Equifax is Apache, which is the backbone that Equifax was operating under. Apache issues an update. The update says, hey, there's this security flaw in our software. You guys need to patch it because an attacker could use this flaw to get access to the websites. Now, an update, think of an update as this. An update is a broadcast to every single criminal on the planet telling them which door they need to knock on to gain access to that system, to that website. So when you don't apply the update, that broadcast has been sent out to criminals. Criminals then read the broadcast. Oh, we've got a news update. Score! Then what happens? Again, it's an automated program. They load that flaw up into a system, and then it starts pinging websites as they sleep. They don't have to manually ping that. It does it automatically. So it goes through hundreds of thousands of websites. That's what happened with Equifax. It was uploaded into a system, then they start pinging it. Here, the fact of the matter, after Apache announced that update, within 24 hours is when Equifax gets hit. Within 24 hours. It hadn't been hit before that. But within 24 hours of the update announced, Equifax didn't update. They start getting hit. That's exactly what happens with every single system. We tend to think as people that cyber criminals, and I don't call them hackers because they're not, we tend to think that cyber criminals are hackers. They're these upper tier computer geniuses able to break into any type of computer system they want to. No, it's simple things like that of reading the updates coming out of companies. Oh, this is a new flaw, a security thing that needs to be patched. We know immediately that, 80% of everyone out there is not going to apply the patch, so we have access to their system. That's how cybercrime works. Okay, so apply all updates as soon as possible. Again, I spoke of that gap. It's that gap where you don't act that a criminal steps in and victimizes at that point.
We've gotten a cluster of questions about how to get online access, because one of our big tips, and I couldn't agree with you more about this, is to monitor. And in order to monitor, you have to have online access to your bank accounts. But you also said you have to have online access to all of your accounts, Social Security Administration. And I heard you say, because if you don't, someone will. So could you just talk a little bit longer about the whole point of how you do that? And if you don't know how to do it, how can you learn how to do it or whatever?
Sure. Here's what's important. We live in a world now where the perception of truth is much more important than the truth itself. Okay, facts don't matter. What matters is what I can convince someone of. Okay, I would argue that it's much more important that I can convince the Social Security Administration that I'm you than it is for you to be you. Okay, and here's why. So you don't say that okay, I'm not going to worry about internet crime because I'm not on the internet. Okay, that sounds on the surface. That sounds okay. That's legitimate. You've heard that. It's not. Yes. Because here's what can happen. I still have access to your information. Even if you've never been on the web, I can still pull your Social Security number. I can still get your date of birth. I can still build that identity profile. All right? You've not been online. If I go and register online banking for you, say you bank at Chase, but you don't do it online, so I will go ahead and set up the online banking there. Or I know that you get Social Security benefits. I know that most people don't have my SSA accounts registered. So I go to my SSA, I register an account in your name. I then divert that Social Security benefit.
How do you do that?
I answer the KBA questions. So what happens is you've never had an online account. They don't know that the information coming in is not you. So I go and I set up an account in your name. I register an email address in your name. So, bobroberts@gmail.com, because a lot of people use Gmail. So bobroberts@gmail.com. I then go to myssa.gov and I start putting in the information to set up an SSA account. They're going to ask what? They're going to ask KBA, knowledge-based authentication questions. Well, I've got your credit report. I've got your background check. I've got all of that stuff. All of those questions that they're asking is coming from where? It's coming from Equifax. It's coming from Experian. It's coming from TransUnion. Those credit bureaus are what gives the federal government the questions to ask. So if I've got the answers in front of me, I'm golden. So they're going to ask the questions. I'm going to answer the questions. They're going to allow me to set up that account in your name. Now, here's what happens, though. I then divert the payments to a prepaid debit card that I own. You notice that you don't get your money that month, or you notice that someone's taking money out of your bank account. You contact the bank. What's the bank going to do? They're going to try to email you to the email address that I've registered in your name. They're going to try to call you to the number that's registered online that I've registered in your name. So they're going to call me. They're going to email me. I appear to be more legitimate than you are at that point. You can bet your butt they're going to call me. Hey, did you get your account compromised? Absolutely not. I guess someone's trying to take it over. Just ignore that completely. I'll contact the police immediately. Everything is fine on my end. That's exactly the way that conversation goes. So even if you don't feel comfortable banking online or having the account online, what I want you to do is still set up the account. That way it keeps a criminal from doing it in your name. Because once he or she does it in your name, it becomes extremely difficult for you to fix that. And while you're trying to fix it, it may take months to fix it. That criminal continues to siphon out the money, to divert the benefit payments to his or her account instead of it going to you. It's all about protecting yourself. Even if you don't use it, you need to have access to it. Okay?
Yeah, thanks. Going back to the dark web, and you had mentioned it during your talk that is it a good idea to do it there's a lot of companies saying, I can search for your presence on the dark web. Should I pay money to do that? Can they find out definitively whether or not my information's on the dark web?
No. All right. So there are companies that monitor, or they say they scan or scrape the dark web for your information. Okay. The only information that these companies can get on the dark web that is personal information is information that criminals freely put out there. Here's what you need to realize, though. Criminals are there to make money. That means that they're selling your information. The only information that's being posted for free are samples or data that is no longer of use to criminals. They've used your information so much by that point in time that they don't need it anymore, and they cast it aside. All right? That's what you see. Companies that offer to do this, they're getting information. When they say that, when they say the dark web, they are scraping the dark web for some data. It's very little data that they get, but they're also using any of the major breaches that are out there. Okay, so TJ Maxx gets breached, or OPM is breached, something like you have a massive breach. They use that and they say, oh, your information has been compromised. Here's what I'm telling you, though. Everyone's information has already been compromised. So do not pay a company to tell you that your information is available to criminals. And it's not just that. I can get your information using legal services. I can go to Ben Verified, Spokio, Intellius, White Pages Pro, Facebook. I can go to all these places and start collecting your personal information. Okay? I can get your social security number from places like TLO or Delve Point. That's not a.
You had told me before that when somebody says I've swept the dark web and you're not on it, they can't possibly know that because so much of the information is behind a paywall, and they're not going to go behind that paywall. And so there could be an ocean of information about me that they're not finding with their quote search of the dark web that I paid $20 for.
Right. So think of a marketplace. Think of a criminal marketplace as something like eBay or Amazon, okay? So the products, while the products are advertised, you don't have the serial numbers of the products, okay? On a criminal website, the products are often human beings information. The serial numbers are the social security numbers. You don't have access to that. That is back in the warehouse. That is back in the criminal's computer, and you've got thousands, hundreds of thousands of criminals. You don't have access to those computers. You have to pay for access. Then he has to go back on his hard drive, pull up that data, send it to you. These companies that are saying we find that data, you don't. They're lying to you. Let me be clear about that. They are lying to you. They're falsely advertising that they can pull and scrape the entire dark web for your data. No, they can't. They get very little of it, very little, and it's the data that criminals choose to put out there as advertisements. That's the only thing it is. Okay?
So that brings us sort of back to the beginning at the end here where you were giving us your tips, and it boils down to if all of our information is somehow floating out there and available for $3, I can buy a social security number, and it all boils down to monitoring, freezing your credit, right? Password.
That's it. I mean,
what about a password manager? I don't think we've talked about that. We talked about password managers, or did you?
I mentioned it, and the thing is that people are going to ask, well, can't a password manager be hacked? Yes, it can, and there have been a couple of instances. So a password manager, sure. So think of a password manager. It generates the passwords for you. It logs in for you. It changes the passwords into secure random passwords when you need to update passwords as well. And the only thing you need to do is remember one main password. Instead of having to remember different passwords for different sites, you remember one main password. That's it. The passwords that it stores are encrypted. So right now, to break that encryption is not going to happen. It's the exact same type of encryption you see on Bitcoin, which no one is able to break that encryption either for the blockchain, or the wallets rather. So understand that right now, while your password manager may be compromised, someone may try to hack into it, they still don't have the ability, there's not the computing power in order to decrypt the vault that has your passwords in there. Okay, so think of it as a vault that's there that holds your passwords, so that when you visit eBay, Amazon, Gmail, what have you, it accesses that vault and it loads up the password immediately for you. If it feels it's time for you to change the password, it will change the password automatically for you. It will pick a secure password, so you don't even have to know what that is. It will pick it, it will log in for you, everything else done immediately right there. It's extremely secure, extremely secure. Right now, it is the best option that we have. There are people that will ask, well, I've got a password manager built in and it says save it to the browser. There are password managers that work with saving the password in the browser. Those are secure. That is different than using Chrome or Apple without the password managers. And it's saying, well, do you want to save it to your browser? No, that's extremely insecure. All right. The only thing that means is that I can do a couple of techniques like a buffer overflow or something like that, and potentially get those passwords sent to me, or I can look at the hash and get the passwords from there. So understand that there's a difference between using a password manager, storing to browser, and just storing to browser usually. Always use a password manager right now. Okay. Hopefully in the future we get to the point where we don't use passwords anymore, but that's in the future. Right now, password manager.
Great. I think we have time for one more question, and this has been really great, though. I really appreciate your being able to answer all these questions.
I appreciate people taking their Saturday out to talk to me and listen to me.
It's Saturday. Staying with us. Yeah, we have over 450 people who have been on the whole time. It's really great.
Sweet.
I just want to come back to the thing that I know we hear from our members, and I know there's more than just AARP members on this call, but I'm on my computer, whether I get a pop-up saying there's a problem or whether I just think there's something wrong with it, and I go to the internet. What do I do? I mean, who do I trust to fix this thing? Do I go to the internet and download a PC cleaner that's going to scan my computer for viruses? Or do I click on an ad that says Microsoft support when I Google help with my Microsoft? You want to talk a little bit about that? What should people do if they're worried there's something wrong with their computer in general?
Okay, well, Doug, you kind of mentioned this. You're touching upon this whole idea of desperation. Okay, you use the word worry, which to me says there's some degree of desperation there. Okay, and I go back. I can't overstate enough the importance of Ronald Reagan's words: trust, but verify. Okay, so if you go to Google and you search for a phone number of a company, what is there to prove to you that it actually belongs to that company? Like there are Cash App, for example, doesn't have a phone number. You literally can't call them. But if you Google looking for a number for that company, there are tons of numbers that pop up. All of them scams. Every single one of them. Every single one of them is a scam. Okay? So you need to realize that and realize that, okay, just because the internet says something doesn't make it so. So if you have a problem, if you need a patch from Microsoft, what I need people to do is not to Google the patch and look at all these patches that pop up that aren't from Microsoft. I need you to go to Microsoft, Microsoft.com, then you go to support, you go to downloads or whatever that is, or patches or updates, and you see what's available and go from there. Go to the source itself. PC cleaners, things like that, malware protectors, go to the actual company. Make sure the company is a legitimate company. Just because it says, or our pop-up says, you need to update. That's one of the big ones, right? Update Flash, update Adobe, whatever that is that's popping up. That's just a pop-up. That's malware. That's the only thing that is. So never obey the pop-ups. Instead, go to the site itself. If it's saying your Microsoft support, it's offering to help you, close that window down, Control-Alt-Delete, shut that task down, then go directly to Microsoft and see if you need to update anything, see if there's any problems there, anything that's found. Go like that. Always go to the source itself, not a third party, and try to verify as much as you possibly can everything that's coming across the line.
What about the advice that if I have, like, my son who's more computer tech savvy than I am, have them come over and look at it as you trust your son and you're sitting right there with them, or go to a brick and mortar store or something other than, I worry about people downloading anything off of the internet to fix their computer because there's so many traps,
Well, the thing about it is it almost, what you mentioned almost feeds into that find a buddy. Okay. So I don't have a problem with your son coming over. Even if your son doesn't know anything, I don't have a problem, because it gives that objective point of view. And let's be honest, sometimes the son doesn't know anything. All right. Sometimes he doesn't. But it gives you that pause.
Yeah.
It's another viewpoint. It gives you that pause from being emotional at that point. It lets you step back. It lets you be objective too. Then hopefully you're objective toward your son, and you realize that, hey, this guy either knows something, or, I'll let him rattle on for a bit, but I'm going to the geek store over at Best Buy tomorrow morning. All right. That's the key to this. Just being objective. And realize it. And sometimes the son can help, sometimes not. But I promise that the son or the daughter will help in at least getting you to step back and having somebody that you can bounce these ideas off of. Okay?
Right. Listen, we've run out of time, but I just want to thank you again you're so clear about describing these things. I'm so proud of you for the transformation you've made from being a bad guy. I am. I mean, you're using this information you used to use to screw over people to help people, and can't ask for more than that. You've really helped us today, and so thanks again for taking your Saturday afternoon to give us this advice. And to all of you,
well, Doug,
I really appreciate tuning in. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to thank you too. I mean, AARP, you guys do a great job. You do, and I'm completely honored to. I'm honored to have the opportunity to come in and talk to your members, to have you come in and speak to me the way you do. It's been a long trip, man. It's been a long trip, and I'm blessed to be here. I don't think I deserve it, but I'm damn thankful for it, and I'm thankful for everyone taking the time to listen to me. I'll do everything I can to help you guys. I promise.
Very good. And thanks to all of you who watched today. Be safe out there. Go to aarp.org for more information. That we have this thing called the Fraud Watch Network, which has lots of videos of Brett, among other things, you can watch to get even more training. Thanks very much, and have a great afternoon.